Welcome to Get Serious. Excited to be diving into this one today here because it's pretty much a U-turn from some of those brewing legal situations that were kind of hitting back to back last week that you heard me talk about here uh, in uh, pretty much an hour of each other. We were able to find paths forward, one more cleanly than the other here. So I want to update accordingly, as well as some of the lessons learned as we were, trying to pursue next steps. So, one of those key ones was related to that messy title deal that we've been working on for 8 months. I know I mentioned it, roughly 38 acres in Texas, and crazy airship situation. And it seemed like last week that the seller, who had been working with us every step of the way, collecting his family members, that he was the one who suddenly got emotional and cold feet after a difficult conversation with his sister, kind of estranged relationship, and potentially about airship issues. Just went cold, ghosted us for a couple of days. And so then we were really considering, okay, how can we try to loop him back into the fold here? Is there a way to sort this out in a more friendly manner before? Do we consider going after this property in a legal direction? We were already really tight on committing any extra funds, and it would have been a tough call to determine how much more we would have been willing to commit. And we were already, 5K deep roughly on the property, plus all that time involved in the deal. And so as we were trying to figure out this situation based on a suggestion from the title attorney who's working with us, it's like, hey, try reaching out in a more friendly manner, email, maybe a voicemail, give him a few days, and then you can try to start accelerating. So our land investor partner on the deal prepped a draft of an email. I had asked, hey, can I review it too? Because, really we were going to feed this into Claude and try to reorient. That's just, standard procedure really for any difficult conversation at this point. And the initial draft, even myself personally, I felt, and again, I'm not really involved with the seller, so I'm not sure the exact relationship they might have had, but it seemed too legal heavy. And this was similar to another property we were working on. I know I talked about a few weeks ago that had a neighbor encroaching on a property that we were about to sell. And they were very friendly. We were able to work it out. But like the initial draft that our broker prepped was just too legal heavy. Like it just bears worth mentioning, like unless you're really going to go all in and try to, and be willing to commit the resources necessary from a legal side, like, and even then, even if you do have that, like, it's just better for everybody involved and less costly if you can sort it out without having to do that. So, me plugging this into Claude, it was like, okay, can we use a combination of, I forget the exact phrasing, but it's like, using the Chris Voss, never split the difference, mixed with kind of the friendliness and empathy of Brene Brown, for instance, who's a really famous social worker. How can we reorient this email to the seller to try to loop him back in the fold? And like the, critical element here is like, if we don't get it to work with this route, like having the email or a voicemail work, it's like a real crapshoot if we're going to commit any resources to go legally. So like this kind of like really has to work. So, Claude, I need you to do your best here. And then that type of phrasing works. And so they came back with similar feedback, like, yeah, this is just too legal heavy. And they were also asking some clarifying questions because they were, again, me not dealing with the seller, but I had heard from our land investor, hey, this seller was, emotional, crying with him on the last phone call. So Claude was like, okay, yeah, we really want to back off the legal piece here. Like, what problem are you trying to solve? And some of this is like, kind of standard, empathy driven, problem solving type directions of speaking with sellers. I know like Ajay and some of the other better sales folk within the industry will talk about this. Like, okay, meeting the seller where they're at, what problem are you trying to solve? Reiterate that. And so that was what some of the clarifying questions were. Okay, going back, what was the seller going to use this money for? Can you dive further into the relationship with his sister? Like what really seemed to be the crux of the problem there? And again, it didn't know how much we were buying the property for, like, okay, roughly. It was asking, okay, what's the amount? How life changing is this? Like any other concerns that could have been brought up? Like what type of relationship did you have with the seller through this? Was it more transactional? Was it more, friendly and rapport driven? And again, we weren't having, direct combos with the sellers, so I had to send all these back to the land investor. Hey, can you answer these to the best of your ability so we can feed this back into our model? And he got back to us right away. He's been, excellent to work with, very communicative. And there were some, problems within the seller's life that was outside of just like looking to make some money on the land deal. He had his mom's house that was facing a tax foreclosure and needed money to pay off that. Plus, he's been dealing with ongoing dialysis treatments. That's just been huge headache, huge burn from a money perspective too. So he's been needing these funds. Plus, like been waiting 8 months. So it's taken forever to do this close. And some of the question. So we had that motivation there, and then we had info about his relationship with his sister, which again was just a strange, difficult. They haven't had the best relationship. His sister was cut out of any inheritance from their mom when she died. And so like this was, I think, the first time they had been in touch when the seller needed to get her as like a affidavit of heirship signing done. And it was a difficult conversation because who knows, she might have been trying to convey, hey, like I should have a part of this too, and so forth. I don't know. But family situation could be tricky, so it's like, okay, do we need to remark on that? And again, like targeting, hey, this is kind of like life-changing money here. And so we fed all that back into Claude, and it gave a much more emotional, connective response, really, tying into, hey, like we've been a team from the start here. I've been with you every step of the way. Like, you remember, you're going to use these funds to pay off your mom's, really your family's house that's facing tax foreclosure. And by the way, like, I mean, can't really comment. I don't know what your relationship with your sister is, but hey, if you have this money, you can have the choice on doing what you will with it. If you want to be able to help her out, your choice, like just, potentially presenting it that way while remaining sensitive to the issue. Also reiterating, hey, these title company docs, can be, scary to sign all these. Like, I can be on the phone with you, walk you through during the, during the process here. And really not mentioning anything from the legal side, just like a check-in, more empathetic. Hey, how are you doing? We've been in touch before. Can you just try to reach out? Just send me a text like you're that you're doing okay there. But also mentioning, hey, we're not going anywhere. Like, we're a team here. We're going to be with you through this process. So like that was really the more firm point in terms of like, yeah, we're going to be pursuing this. But that was just the lightest touch that like we will pursue this property, but otherwise nothing mentioned from a legal side here. Because again, we wanted to maintain a lot of friendliness and orienting around the rapport that our land investor had built with the seller to this point. And then we also asked Claude, okay, draft another potential voicemail, assuming the email doesn't get answered to, or we have to try calling. And we're also we're gonna send this email on Friday, give him the weekend to respond, try calling again on a Monday, and hey, here's the voicemail. And that just like slightly upped the pressure here. Actually, let me pull up the copy, because where was this? Okay, negotiation strategy, sister angle. Yeah. So the voicemail, we oriented it, and again, this is why you have to always go back with AI, because like the first voicemail, it was saying, I'm still here to help you do that. With trying to save your mom's house. Like, no pressure. Just when you're ready to talk, I'm here. Take care of yourself. But I had to go back, and I'm like, well, that's not accurate. Like, we can't say there's no pressure. Like, when you're ready to talk, like, we have to have some type of timeline here. So you got to reorient it back and ask it to fix. And so then with that in mind, the revised voicemail script was Like, okay, I understand you need some time to process everything, but I also need to be honest. Like, we can't leave this hanging indefinitely. So, when you're ready to talk about how we move forward together, I'm here. Please give me a call back. When you get this, take care. So you can see it's much easier for me to correct AI and how I sound, or if I know the relationship I've had with somebody. But if I haven't been privy to any communications and I don't know how the land investor or our partner in this deal was talking with the seller, so I had to say, okay, look over this, but you might have to adjust some of this to your voice here if it sounds too unrealistic. Like, I just don't have that information to determine one way or another. And like, scheduling wise, would it make sense to call on a Monday? Is he usually available then? Not sure what this guy's situation is. So like, we might have to make some adjustments based on the underlying mechanics of their kind of ongoing communication. But we sent all that over. And again, like, I paid a lot of, like, really, really focused on trying to get this right, because like, yeah, we want to nail this 100%, because again, if we screw this up or the seller doesn't come back here, there's a very good chance that we won't be able to pursue this, or it was already going to be a borderline deal with the amount of extra costs we had involved in this anyway. So it was just tricky from that perspective. But pretty much right as I sent that email and spent all that time on that, I got an update from the land investor that the seller had called back, and he was apologetic and was saying, sorry for the previous call, not answering. I was in the hospital for a couple of days, like low blood sugar, whatever. And we have to take that at face value. Either way, he came back into the fold and was like, okay, yeah, let's schedule the title company. I'm ready to sign on Monday, and let's get this done. And so, like, obviously that's a huge, a huge sigh of relief that we didn't have to go through this whole rigmarole that we had just prepped for. And but who knows? It could not have worked out that way. But we really lucked out from that perspective again. Luck is not a strategy, but we're coming up with how are we going to deal with this process. And so we have the steps in place on how to handle this in case it doesn't work out in our favor in the future, because sometimes we have had to put some more pressure on sellers before. Then I have a couple other tidbits about the actual closing process with the seller. I'll save that for the next podcast, actually. It'll be a little bit shorter, but some really key info. So I will catch you on tomorrow's pod. Remember, seriousland.capital for any of your funding needs. Again, 50K minimum, 150K plus preferred. Land Daily Diligence Facebook group for zero cost review of your land deals, and landpricer.ai for the most reliable land pricing tool on the market. Anticipated end of August launch here, and a preview at Unconference next week, actually, August 7th to 9th. Hope to see many of you there. Take care, subscribe, and share. Bye.